During the opening session of every Key Leader program, participants learn about the nature and the magic of servant leadership, a concept first articulated by Robert K. Greenleaf. Welcome to Indianapolis, Indiana, home of the Greenleaf Center for Servant Leadership. The Greenleaf Center is an international nonprofit organization devoted to helping people understand the principles and practices of servant leadership. The Center's annual conference brings leaders and experts in business, education, and nonprofit organizations from around the world to share insights about the value and the challenges of servant leadership. Robert Greenleaf, the man behind this global movement, went to work in the 1920s for the biggest and most effective company in the world at the time, AT&T. He worked his way up to a special vice president's position in management research, development, and education. After studying the behavior of managers and executives at AT&T and elsewhere for many years, Greenleaf concluded that the most effective leaders in the business world are not the cutthroat competitors or the power-hungry tyrants, but rather the natural servants who care for the welfare and effectiveness of others. In 1970, he published The Servant as Leader, the first in a series of essays in which he explored the concept of servant leadership. In that essay, Greenleaf described the servant leader like this. The servant leader is servant first. It begins with the natural feeling that one wants to serve first. Then conscious choice brings one to aspire to lead. The best test is, do those served grow as persons? Do they, while being served, become healthier, wiser, freer, more autonomous, more likely themselves to become servants? And what is the effect on the least privileged in society? Will they benefit, or at least will they not be further deprived? In Key Leader programs the world over, Greenleaf's test of servant leadership is now called simply the Bob test. It's important to remember that Greenleaf did not set out to develop an argument for altruism and charity, and he was not preaching to a Sunday school class. His job was to find out how to identify and develop the most effective and productive leaders for the business world. Nowadays, virtually all the research and literature on leadership effectiveness in the business world and elsewhere echoes Greenleaf's philosophy. Over the long haul, the most successful companies are run according to the principles and practices of servant leadership, not by the more traditional autocratic my way or the highway philosophy. Robert Greenleaf's life spanned most of the 20th century. That century witnessed the most astounding explosions in human history. On the destructive side, those explosions were literal, in horrifying torrents of bombs and bullets, both in war and in civil violence. But on the positive side, explosions of information and knowledge gave us greater appreciation for the universe and our place in it. Millions of people now live twice as long as their ancestors, enjoy comfortable standards of living, and achieve advanced education, leading social scientists to recognize that average human beings, most of the time, are much more intelligent, creative, goal-oriented, and responsible than we ever imagined. We now realize that our potential to live in peace, to work together for shared goals, and to lead as servants is deeply rooted in the human spirit. We just have to learn how to nourish and encourage that potential. Meanwhile, our new technology has shrunk the planet Earth to the dimensions of a true global village, in which we must all learn to live together despite differences of race, culture, religion, or political ideology. At the dawn of the 21st century, the American Psychological Association launched a movement called positive psychology to take advantage of all this new information and knowledge.
Positive psychology is a study of what's right about us, the study of humans at their best, how we can focus on positive emotion and be happier than focusing on negative emotion. And that's really the difference between positive psychology and what you might call old psychology.
Ironically, all our new information and knowledge has turned our attention to some of the most ancient wisdom ever recorded. The last century gave us way too many tyrants and power mongers, yet the most influential leaders, the ones whose legacies will last, are those like Mohandas Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, and Mother Teresa, all of whom are quintessential servant leaders. What Christians call the Golden Rule advises us to treat others as we wish them to treat us, and it's expressed in every one of the world's religions. Anticipating Bob Greenleaf by 1900 years, Jesus of Nazareth told his followers that if anyone wants to be first, he shall be last of all and servant of all. 500 years before Jesus, Confucius said, "He who wishes to secure the good of others has already secured his own." In Greenleaf's own time, Albert Einstein claimed that only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile. When we think of service and leadership in the context of such ancient and yet modern wisdom, we see that service itself is not only the heart of leadership, but also the essence of purpose and meaning in life. The purpose of any leader really is to serve the long-term interests of the whole group. The purpose of a quarterback in football or a pitcher in softball is to serve the team. The purpose of a teacher is to help students learn. We like to call political leaders public servants, and the heart of any business success is all about customer service. By definition, the concept of purpose links us to the larger context of life around us. Even in the animal kingdom, where we generally expect brutal competition for scarce resources, we now know that cooperation is just as important to the survival and adaptability of any species as the physical dominance of any individual leader. In short, service is the condition of being put to use. To serve is to serve a purpose, a higher calling, a meaning beyond one's meager temporary self. Servant leadership is the truest and best kind of leadership, not only because it benefits the needy and less fortunate, but because it is the most effective kind of leadership in the long run for any group, organization, or community. What's more, servant leaders don't need exceptional talents or skills, so virtually all of us can be servant leaders. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love.